Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. Hello again, and welcome to the Juice Box Money in the Bank 2024 predictions show. Before we get into myself and Josh Isenberg running down the entire Money in the Bank 2024 card happening this weekend in Toronto, just want to get the boring stuff out of the way. Follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen. You can follow Josh Isenberg at JoshIsenberg4 on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet. Subscribe to the Juice Box on YouTube at Juicy Steen. And you can listen to the Juice Box on YouTube, Amazon Music, juicysteen.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, of course, Spotify as well. If you listen to Spotify or on Apple Podcasts via iTunes, leave a rating and review. 5 stars really helps the podcast grow. YouTube at Juicy Steen. The RSS feed always is updated with the newest episode that comes out every Friday, unless there's multiple episodes that week, in which they too will be uploaded as well. We are currently in the process of configuring some stuff for the video side of YouTube for the Juice Box, and hopefully that will be coming to fruition sooner rather than later as we move deeper into summer. So yeah, a lot of stuff, cool, interesting projects going on as well. I've mentioned it before, the Juice Box umbrella is going to be housing some more content here in a undetermined amount of time, but we are really getting close, I do feel. And I will discuss more details as we get closer to that day. But without further ado, we got the Money in the Bank 2024 prediction show. Myself, Josh Isenberg. 5 matches on this card. A lot of intrigue. A lot of things up in the air. We don't know what avenue WWE will take for this Money in the Bank. I referenced this being the Royal Rumble of SummerSlam because, you know, Royal Rumble leads to WrestleMania. Money in the Bank leads to SummerSlam. So everything that happens here at this show will likely determine a lot happening at SummerSlam August 3rd in Cleveland, Ohio. So without further ado, it's Josh Isenberg at JoshIsenberg4 and yours truly, Juice Springsteen at JuicySteen on Twitter with the Money in the Bank 2024 prediction show right here on the Juice Box. Welcome everybody. We are here inside the Juice Box for another PLE prediction show. And it's not just me, as it was last week for Forbidden Door. The door has been opened, and it is ajar. And inside is another juice box with another straw. It's the one, it's the only. Josh Isenberg, how are you, Big Daddy?
I am doing fantastic. Juice, Money in the Bank, probably my second or third favorite pay-per-view event or a PLE event that WWE gives us every single year. I'm looking forward to it in a fun 5-match card like we've seen in recent memory. I'm looking forward to diving in here and talking who's going to win, who's going to lose, and what we can expect.
As I tell my significant other all the time, you know, some won, some lost, you know. It is what it is. Some guys got a victory, someone didn't win, so it is, you know. It is what happened. Yeah, 5 matches, man. This they just did this same 5-match concept, I guess you could call it, at the last PLE Clash of the Castle. Are you a fan of the 5-match format? I mean, even 6 matches seems, you know, pretty concise. Meanwhile, Forbidden Door, 12 matches, something like that, and it was still only 4 hours. 4 hours if you don't count the 0 hour.
Yeah.
So 5 matches good for you, or?
Yeah, I am for this pay-per-view specifically. I think you could have added 1 or 2 matches for other PLEs, but a PLE like this that you have, you know, 3 multi-man, multi-female matches. You know, you think the Money in the Bank ladder matches will probably go 45 minutes from, curtain to curtain. So that'll cut up an hour and a half of your time. And then you want to give enough time for the 6-man, for the 2 title matches as well. So this PLE could probably be about 3.5 hours, which I'm fine with. I think 3.5 is perfect. And yeah, I'm excited for it. I think the biggest thing for me is this is probably a very much more unpredictable of a Money in the Bank than it was last year. And I'm excited for that because there's a lot of people that you can justify winning that briefcase and moving on for the next year, chasing to the potential to become a world champion.
Yeah, and you said multi-person matches. We also have another match that's got some decent traction to it in regards to current storylines in WWE. And we will tackle that in a moment. But yeah, I think the Money in the Bank ladder matches, it's just like the Royal Rumble, where I think also, some people have been saying with the future of SummerSlam becoming 2 nights, at least starting in 2026, what other PLEs could benefit? They've said maybe the Royal Rumble because you have 2 of those matches. However, I'm kind of against that because I think it would be tougher to sell 2 nights with 2 separate Royal Rumbles only because you have to fill the rest of the card. And like the Rumble can be great and you can sell that, but
yeah,
Money in the Bank, I think it's perfect for this 1 night, 5 matches. I'm pretty stoked and I agree with you. I think the actual ladder matches themselves are very unpredictable. I think there's some obvious choices, but I'm not sure WWE is going to follow suit. So let's dive in with potentially the match I'm most interested in, just because there's one way I think it should go, but we've seen them do the non-obvious things in the past. Intercontinental Championship. Sami Zayn defends against Braun Breaker. I'd like to say upstart, but goodness, he's just mowed every single person down, really, since coming onto the scene on the main roster here, Josh. And I mean, I love it. I love Braun. He's got the best parts of Scott Steiner and Rick Steiner. He looks jacked as all hell. And he knows what he's doing. He's got great timing. And I think this is a quality first huge PLE match for Breaker. I'm just going to say, I think Braun Breaker should wipe the floor clean with Sami Zayn and take this IC title. I think it's worthy of him. What say you?
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity, and nothing against Sami's Intercontinental Championship reign at WrestleMania since WrestleMania. But you got to go with the hot hand, and what better than putting over a guy like Braun Breaker, who ideally is your next big thing, pun intended, the comparisons to Brock Lesnar. It's amazing to me because Breaker, when he came up, he was getting booed before kind of having that odd face turn in NXT with Baron Corbin. But now the fans love him. They see the potential and the talent in him. And I mean, he's only been wrestling in WWE under the WWE umbrella since, the fall of 2021. So he's less than 3 years removed from, being a professional wrestler or a professional football player. So you got to say it's amazing to see what he's been able to do in such a short time. I would be more than happy to see a 10-15 minute match where you have that classic Sami Zayn struggle, but then ultimately Sami Zayn falling to Breaker. You can run this back at SummerSlam if you wanted to, especially it being 2 nights, especially having Sami always good as the ultimate underdog. But I think this is the opportunity where you push Breaker to the moon. The Intercontinental Championship is the best place and the best title for him to start that rise.
I will gently correct you. 2-night SummerSlam doesn't happen for 2 more years.
Oh, even so. But yeah.
But yeah, man, I agree with that. And I think, friend of the show, one Justin Labar, has mentioned before with the Undertaker streak, with Gunther's title reign, with Roman Reigns' title reign, the person that dethrones that guy or, defeats that streak, what have you, they have to be worthy enough to carry that level of what they just accomplished further, and I have no problem in Sami Zayn almost being a transition in that regard to where you take it off of Gunther because now Gunther has a title match set in stone for SummerSlam. And then boom, Braun Breaker, like you said, man, the next big thing, as it were. He could take the Intercontinental title to a new level, a higher level, a harder hitting level. And then you got guys like Ilya and a ton of talent that could go and challenge for the Intercontinental title if Braun Breaker were to win. I preface this match by saying, well, sometimes they don't do the obvious. I'm afraid that with the things that Braun Breaker has been doing outside of just mowing people down in ring, could lead to a potential disqualification because of too much chaos that Braun Breaker brings. If that were to happen, do you think that's a good idea? And if it were to happen, do you see it still happening as another match at SummerSlam, maybe with a stipulation, or is this really just Braun Breaker winning the title and that's that?
It could be a disqualification to really extend. But I do think, something that I wouldn't be against is taking Sammy off television for a bit, because he could be involved in a bigger storyline that we talk about later in the night. And I'm fine with either or. I'm fine with him getting another match at SummerSlam because it's less than a month away from this. So another 3 or 4 weeks isn't going to ultimately hurt him. If that happens, I think that match needs to be, a street fight, a no holds barred match, some sort of stipulation if they go the route of disqualification with shenanigans on the outside. So either way is fine. My preference is Braun winning the championship, giving Sammy a month or two off before he, comes back into a bigger picture and a bigger storyline that's more important to him than the Intercontinental Championship.
And I'm glad you brought that up, and we can turn that into the next match. 6-man tag, excuse me, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens versus the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and or Jacob Fatu. We don't really know what 3 we'll get. Hell, they could just bring 4 out and say, well, we're the Bloodline, we do what we want. You brought up Sami Zayn as needing to maybe take some time off. What has Braun Breaker been doing consistently recently, especially to a guy like Ricochet, putting them out of action for a long time? And where does Sami Zayn fit in all this? Braun Breaker could win this title. He could dominate Sami Zayn, put him out on a stretcher, and you don't see Sami Zayn potentially until ultimately, I would assume you're thinking the Bloodline down the line, maybe around the fall.
Yeah, I think that's the right opportunity here. And you sprinkle him in whenever you need it. He could come in 2 weeks or 3 weeks before a potential big match, maybe a War Games type match. You don't need him to be heavily involved because there are so many pieces already with the new Bloodline, with the potential return of Roman, with when's Paul Heyman going to come back. This is an opportunity, I think, at Money in the Bank for the Bloodline to wreak havoc on these 3 men. I'll tell you this much. I wouldn't hate it if Cody took the pin.
Ooh,
I think Cody,
yeah.
being back in WWE, we haven't seen him really suffer many losses and many pinfall losses. And if the ultimate goal is really to have Cody and Solo for the World Championship at SummerSlam, which I think is the most obvious one, unless they want to fast track Roman back for Money in the Bank, I don't see Roman coming back at the earliest before SummerSlam. So I think the Bloodline here needs to get those wins because we've seen them lose. So we need to make them feel like they are indestructible. And with the Jacob Fatu addition, that's the right guy to put on there, right? He's the guy that you can spotlight during this match. I'm okay if Tonga Loa or Tama Tonga is not involved and it's a 6-man. I don't want to see a 3-on-4. I just think that if that happens, then the Bloodline should absolutely destroy those 3 guys, but they're not going to. You don't just run through Randy, Kevin, and Cody. So at the end of the day, I think you have, the enforcer, Jacob Fatu, help and give the pinfall to Solo Sikoa, his tribal chief, so you set up Cody and Solo at SummerSlam.
I tend to agree. I think you could have either Tonga Loa or Tama Tonga being on the outside as just, it doesn't have to be a 4-on-3 for all 4 of those guys to be out there. Just one guy on the outside. You give Solo, like you said, if Solo gets a pinfall over Cody, that's an easy lay claim that he can make towards, hey, SummerSlam, I've earned this, let's do this. And I don't know, you mentioned War Games, unless it's 5-on-5 and they can figure it out, I think Roman Reigns, the Usos, and Sami Zayn versus Solo Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu would absolutely work. Do you think that's four on
Definitely.
four is
Yep.
good enough?
I think it is. I don't think you need to add a fifth just to add a fifth. I think you can do a 4-on-4. People aren't going to complain about it. I don't see a fifth on either side that makes a ton of sense. That would be my go-to, to be honest with you, is making sure that, again, you build up this new bloodline with victories, and then something happens at SummerSlam where, does Cody win? We can talk about that obviously next month,
Yep.
but there's just a lot of opportunity now, especially with the elimination of Paul Heyman, where there's still, when they said I think they're in the bottom of the third, a lot of people were like, well, I'm not really sure what else they're going to do. And then the bloodline since, before Jacob Fatu was there, didn't make a huge impact, but they were still around. But now I think it's picked up so much steam as of last week with the elimination of the Wise Man. So, yeah, I think the 4-on-4 is the obvious choice here. But, again, it has to
Yeah.
be the Bloodline winning this match. What do you say?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And the other, I think the Bloodline are going to win. I think Solo and Cody are almost a lock for SummerSlam. And of course, you maybe get that Roman Reigns return down the line. Of course, without Paul Heyman, how much, can really be done other than got to get Roman back. So that's how we finally got those pieces. And I love how you said the third inning. We might be in the fourth or fifth. Like it's crawling. And I think we got at least another WrestleMania to go. With all these pieces. We haven't even mentioned The Rock, so because I don't think The Rock would do War Games, but he could absolutely show up after, in some sort of way to further that. My only other caveat to this match is when at Clash of the Castle, Cody Rhodes was at the ramp and Randy Orton and Kevin Owens kind of helped save the day. Randy Orton had an extended glance at Cody Rhodes' world title. Do you think there's any chance, maybe not a heel turn from Randy Orton, but Orton kind of leaves Cody high and dry to have Solo pick the bones?
I think you tease that for the next 3 months. Yeah, I think even more than that, to be honest with you. There's so much with the Bloodline where Cody can be engulfed with them for another 2-3 months, take us into September, October. I think at that point as well, as we've seen, those are the kind of months where world champions are finding not random opponents, but Seth was with Shinsuke last year because they kind of just needed somebody, right? Yep. And then he faced Damian, he faced a McIntyre, guys like that. I'm fine with Cody going, I would say, War Games up to the Royal Rumble February without his interaction or match with Randy Orton, because I do think that is something that they want to put and they should put at a WrestleMania. It's definitely a SummerSlam worthy match. It's definitely a WrestleMania match, but I do think it's too quick to make that turn, especially if Cody is going to face Solo at SummerSlam, which I think will happen. And then again, you think 6-7 months down the road to WrestleMania is going to pick up real quick after, October, November. Those pay-per-views again are just, let's put the pieces together on what we're going to have happen at the Rumble and then, moving forward after that.
Yeah, and like you said, they could just tease it. There's already a built-in story with Randy Orton to where you don't need a super long build, for it to make sense or it to have impact. These guys have gone, Cody said, like, I'm not here without a guy like Randy Orton, like, in his life. So I think you're right. I think there's some time to have that happen. And that's the beauty of it, right? Is the bloodline has been around what is it, 2020? So 4 years of all these different guys coming in and out. They could go for a lot longer. And it's nice because you can placehold certain matches that will happen and want to have happen. Randy Orton and Cody, plenty of other different incarnations of the guys working with the bloodline that you can do later. You don't have to worry about it now. And it's nice having those matches in your back pocket for the future.
Yep.
Let's talk some Money in the Bank first. Let's go with the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Zoe Stark, Naomi, Lyra Valkyria, Tiffany Stratton, Chelsea Green, and Io Sky. This is pretty stacked. And I would say that the obvious choice is Tiffany Stratton But I really wouldn't mind seeing Chelsea Green take this briefcase. What say you, Josh?
I'm going to go with neither of them. Do I
Ooh, okay.
want Tiffany to win? Yes. I think her carrying the briefcase, being obnoxious, and just running around with that for the next 6 or 7 months might be really enjoyable. But I think Naomi wins. I think Naomi's
Ooh,
return has been okay. She was at WrestleMania with Bianca and Jade in a really cool visual during
yep.
that 6-woman tag team match. I think the interactions backstage of Naomi and Bayley being buddies, being even better friends than we probably thought of before. But then they also do have that real life friendship outside. And I do think that Naomi needs something. The Money in the Bank is always so much better when a heel carries it. But what better way to get Naomi back really in the importance of the women's division than to have her carry the briefcase, have her, when is she going to cash in on Bayley? And that is that's a storyline. That's a group that I think we can really have dominate the fall, is the Bayley and Naomi feud. And I'm not a huge Naomi fan, but I think she
Okay.
is more than qualified to be that Money in the Bank winner, to become a champion again. And my biggest thing out of this one, Juice, I
Yeah.
do not want a quick women's cash in. It's not going to happen at the pay per
Okay.
view because there's no women's world title matches. But
That's
give
true.
them.
And sorry to interrupt, but the
Yep.
women are 100% cash in rate.
Yeah.
So could
Yep.
this be one, depending, I mean, could this be finally the one where it doesn't work? Could you see an Io Sky win it, try to cash in on Bayley, try to get that back from, for damage control and it fail?
Yeah.
Because I just don't see if Tiffany Stratton wins it, she's gonna win the title. She's the future of the division in my not
Yeah.
so humble opinion. So maybe they just go 100% still. I mean, there's no way Zoe Stark wins, right?
I don't think Zoe wins. I don't think Lyra Valkyria
Lyra,
wins.
no. She had a nice run in the Queen of the Ring, but
Yeah,
and
and I know that they have a lot that they like her a lot. You can
yeah, for
tell.
sure.
Um, yeah, I mean, for me, it's a coin flip. I think Chelsea would be very entertaining, but
Well,
I think
I say Chelsea because it's a Canadian crowd and she's
yeah,
Canadian, and I think they might be pulling for her. Tiffany, I think, will be the fan favorite ultimately, but I think Chelsea's gonna have a little bit of that. She's the heel at like 1,000%, but the Canadian crowd can't help but root for their own.
root for their own. Absolutely. Yeah. And Chelsea's probably the most entertaining, right? I think.
Yeah.
But and this is not a knock against Chelsea, but she has her place within WWE right now.
Okay.
We don't view her as world champion. We view her as a really strong entertainer that bridges the gap between what your main women's storyline is, which always just revolves around the title. There's not much depth in women's storylines when there's a world champion, aside from what we're seeing with Liv. Yeah, I just my gut says Naomi, my heart says Tiffany, with the
Wow.
wild card of Chelsea kind of sneaking and stealing a victory to potentially cash in and become champion.
Oh, just pick half the field. You'll get one of them right.
I don't get paid for this. I can hang up right now on you, Juice.
Hey, no.
See.
No, but I kind of agree. Naomi, that's honestly you're stunned me with that selection.
There's just
I
nothing
see.
else that she's been able to do. Like Io has damage
Yeah.
control. Chelsea has her spot. Stratton. I again think Stratton's probably the not the odds-on favorite, but what else does Naomi
Yeah.
bring to the table right now that really makes her feel important? And that sucks
Honestly,
because she come back with a really good TNA run,
yeah.
and people
Yeah.
like to see her back. So I think that's just like the easy choice, not necessarily the best choice.
I mean, here's what I would do is so Zoe's not going to win. Like we said, Io has damage control. Lyra had a great run, like I said, with Queen of the Ring. If Chelsea wins, she's going to be unsuccessful in the cash in.
Yeah.
If Tiffany Stratton wins, the briefcase becomes pink, and I think she eventually wins. And Tiffy time is all the time, and it'll be a perfect way to cash in. If Naomi does not win this match, do not be shocked if she ends up joining the Bloodline.
You never know. You never.
Because you made a great point, but it started my gears to turn. You're right. She doesn't really have much going on, and hasn't had it after since coming back. And we talked about how many innings. It's been teased for a while, but that would be pretty bold if for Naomi to join the dark side, as it were. The bloodline right now is all bad guys. So I don't know. Maybe she would join the Usos and be a force for the good guy bloodline.
Yeah, but then the other bloodline would need a female for her to feud with.
Nia Jax.
I guess. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Interesting.
It's a lot of options. Yeah. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Tiffany Stratton. I think it's a lock, Josh.
It's a lock, Jerry.
And you're gonna go Naomi.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Naomi.
Final pick. All right. Well, either way, hopefully whoever wins this and the following match that we're going to talk about, we don't discuss their cash-ins until way later when we're more accurate, assuming that they're going to cash in, because we were dead wrong with Damian Priest last year. So let's get into the men's Money in the Bank ladder match here. Another stacked lineup here for a lot of different reasons. Jey Uso, Carmelo Hayes, Andrade, Chad Gable, LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre. A lot going on here. I'm going to let you have the floor first. Normally I set these up, but I'm going to let you have the floor. Run through these guys. Who do you think is going to win, and who's your runner-up? This and that and the other.
Carmelo, no. Andrade, no. Chad, no.
Okay.
LA Knight is going to face Logan Paul at SummerSlam, so he's not going to win. So it narrows us down to Jey and Drew. Jey, to me, is either going to win Money in the Bank or going to win the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I think he's better suited to win Money in the Bank. I think Drew McIntyre does not need to be Mr. Money in the Bank and then get screwed over by CM Punk.
Right.
I don't think that's necessary. Here's the thing, though. If Logan Paul interferes with LA Knight in this match, do we want CM Punk to interfere with Drew McIntyre?
Just everybody gets interfered. Well, because then I think Chad Gable could have the Wyatt Six on his ass in the match, too. Let's just throw everybody in the match.
Right, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of additional storylines outside of these men in this match, which is a good thing, but also can paint you into a wall where you're doing the same thing over and over. So I think Jey wins. I don't know if they bring down Logan, if they bring down Punk. What I really want is just for a brief distraction for McIntyre, whether it's Punk's music or whatever it is. You don't need to see CM Punk, but I think the mental game will overtake McIntyre. That's going to happen at SummerSlam. So overall, I think Jey, with Money in the Bank, if he gets involved in a bloodline storyline, in the fall, he's still Mr. Money in the Bank. He's still a guy that you have to keep an eye on if you're a champion. And, how great is it that every week or every few weeks we see him with that briefcase in the crowd that's just eating all over the place. That's a great visual, I think, that you can lean on. So much to what I typically say when heels should be Money in the Bank winners, I'm going to go with two faces. I'm going to go Drew, and I'm going to go Naomi.
Wow. Well, you think Drew's going to win? Or you said Jey.
Jey. I said I typically would go with the heels like a Drew, but I'm going to go with Jey and Naomi.
Okay. Well, when we replay this back, you'll hear your first mistake. So I'm glad. Wait, it's 0 for 2. Yeah, you're behind in the count. But don't hang up on the call. We got a whole nother match to incorrectly predict together. But you made some good points. Carmelo and Andrade do seem like the odd men out here. Andrade at least is getting a spot. People were complaining. They were complaining we didn't get enough in WWE. Then he goes to AEW, and people were still not satisfied with how he was used. Now he's back in WWE, and it's like, well, what has he done for us lately? And I still don't think he's going to win this. Carmelo Hayes is an interesting wild card because Chad Gable, I think, is going to have some sort of Wyatt interaction to where he either doesn't even make it to Money in the Bank, like to the match, or the lights go out when he's trying to climb the ladder and he's not there anymore. Something crazy. Yeah. I can see Logan Paul costing LA Knight by actually being there. So you could have the lights go out for Gable. Logan Paul could be there, and then all you need is the of Punk's entrance theme to throw McIntyre off. Jey Uso seems to be the guy. And you brought up a great point. I've been saying I think Jey Uso would be a great Royal Rumble winner, but I don't know. If he wins, what is Cody and Jey the only match that could happen conceivably that I would believe it'd be face versus face with some nice background to it? I don't know if he could win the Royal Rumble and win. And I don't know if they want to do that right now with Jey. And it's more intrigue. Yeet in the Bank, that's the poster. It's got Yeet on the case. It's marketing. It's genius. And I think the sky's the limit for Jey Uso. And how about this? He could win Money in the Bank and still have an opportunity to have a title match at WrestleMania. He doesn't need to win the Royal Rumble. Then he could hold on to that thing for as long as he wants.
Yep, and, absolutely.
We've seen it only go so long, so I'd be curious to see if he held on to it past WrestleMania or at WrestleMania like Priest. So ultimately, I'm gonna say Jey Uso, but there is a part of me that thinks that Drew McIntyre is gonna win this thing and potentially try to cash in on Seth or Damian Priest, as we'll get to in this next match, and that's where Punk interferes. But that also cancels out Money in the Bank for a whole year. So is that a risk you're willing to take? I'm not sure. So I'll go Jey, but I think Drew McIntyre really could do it. He said he wanted to cash in that night. So
and it's interesting because when you look at this card, the 5 matches, the multiple people, you look at last year's card with 7 matches. This is a fresh card. There's a lot of fresh people. Out of the 27 competitors and matches last year, only 7 of them made the card this year. Damian, LA Knight, Cody, and then you also have Io, Zoe, Seth, and then Solo Sikoa and Jey Uso. So there's a lot of fresh eyes that are going to be on this pay-per-view, on this PLE, because you have so many different pieces moving and so many different stories outside of the Money in the Bank ladder matches. And I think that's a great thing for WWE. I think it's a fantastic thing when you go into a card 1 year removed and you're not focused on, the Bloodline Civil War as much, but you still know that might be right around the corner once again. So fresh eyes, fresh opportunities. I wouldn't be against Drew winning. But then, him cashing in, then, Punk screws him, and then you have those 2 guys, and Drew could potentially lose that match but still be Mr. Money in the Bank. So we've seen that before where Money in the Bank contracts, they can be in separate feuds and take losses, then immediately cash it in, and it's like nothing else happened. It just kind of eliminates what happened with them previously. It's hard to argue with what you think, but I'm still going to go Jey. But yeah. It's not surprising if Drew happens.
Yeah, I'm honestly just thinking about it and looking at how it's all placed in here. I'm gonna pick Drew. I think Drew's gonna win this thing. And we'll talk about it right now. Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins, World Heavyweight title. Last chance. So what this means is between these 2 guys, if Damian Priest wins this match and retains the title, Seth Rollins will never challenge for that title as long as Priest is champion. But if Seth Rollins wins, Damian Priest must leave the Judgment Day. So, Josh, I ask you this. Let's throw this into the mix. Let's say for some crazy reason I'm correct and Drew McIntyre wins Money in the Bank. He cashes in and makes it a triple threat, no rules, and Rollins doesn't win. What could happen here? There's so many different avenues where, because there's stipulations in the one-on-one match. But Drew McIntyre, let's say he wins the briefcase, do you think he would wait to the end of the match or try to make it a triple threat, and that's where you get a CM Punk interaction?
He would do exactly what Damian Priest did to him at WrestleMania.
Okay.
Is wait until the match is over and attack. Heels don't even the odds or make them, a 33% chance. That doesn't seem like it
Seth Rollins did.
Exactly. Yeah. But that was at the very end of a 15-minute match or a 12-minute match with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, who beat the crap out of each other. So I'm trying to edit myself here, but
I
I don't want USA Network to blur me out.
Oh, God, I know. I can't wait for the Juice Box to be on Netflix in 2025.
Exactly. So, when I look at this, it's weird because I see all three guys that could potentially leave as champion.
Yeah.
But it really is going to be who is going to lose to Gunther. I think Gunther
you got to look at that too.
Right now, at this point in the first week of July, there's no way Gunther loses at SummerSlam and does not become champion.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
So do you give the title to either Seth or Drew for 1 month for them to lose to Gunther? No. Do you have McIntyre fail his cash in and then he is just fuming at CM Punk? Sure, that's fine. But then again, like you said earlier, it eliminates a full year of a storyline that could potentially be used on somebody else. So
yeah, that's true.
It's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic because, like you said, there's so many ways they could go about this.
And I like what you mentioned with Priest. Like, they already did this. Like, Priest already did this type of thing with the briefcase, costing Drew. And that's why I think Drew's going to be like, look, I'm going to do the same thing to you. And then because then I think it's easier I guess you're right. Gunther's going to beat Seth or Damian, but I think the last chance was put in there so Seth wins, or Seth doesn't win, and he's not going to face Damian again, but I don't think Priest will have the title much longer. And I think Priest will win trying to save face and say, look, I won. I'm not leaving the Judgment Day. And then it turns out like Finn Balor doesn't want him in there anymore, and that's where you start causing that rift that seemingly has been going on. So I don't think Seth is the world. Do you find it interesting that Seth is back already?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I do think him being back, I think he gets the title here. Like if I'm putting money on and I'm not confident at all, I think Seth somehow becomes champion.
Loses to Gunther?
And then loses to Gunther.
Yeah, like what does that leave Seth? Like so Seth, let's just say that happens. Seth wins his title, loses to Gunther, then like what is next for Seth Rollins? That seemingly puts him out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, trust me, I know it's hard because you have a guy like Rollins that you can always rely on Seth, wherever you put him.
They leaned on him for a while.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, you could even go back, after main eventing or, cashing in at 31, being hurt at 32, and then obviously WrestleMania 33 with Triple H. After that big match with Triple H, where was he at 34, leading off the show in a Triple Threat Intercontinental Championship match?
Yeah.
So he's always been up and down, never below the mid card, but always in that upper mid to main event level. And I think realistically, you can keep Seth warm with feuds kind of like they did with Cody for the potential of him and CM Punk at WrestleMania. I think the injury of Punk just delayed the inevitable of what they want to have happen. So you can do that. And Seth is a guy that can feud with upper mid-card guys for months. He can, I don't want to see him against a guy like Braun Breaker or anything like that for the IC title, but keeping him relevant is easier now because it is Seth Rollins. He has established so much credibility and so much tenure in WWE where wherever you put him, whoever he's against, he's like a Miz plus, right? Like you can put him anywhere and he'll make something happen, but he's more of a main event world champion material than Miz. But again, a guy like that is just when you go to Netflix in January, you're going to still have 2.5, 3 hours of programming. You're still going to need a guy like Rollins to do whatever you ask him to do. And I think he's been just the workhorse literally for the past 2-3 years in WWE.
Let me ask you this. Let's say Seth Rollins does not win this match. Mm-hmm. What does he do at SummerSlam?
Oh,
because he's got to be there. He's not going to get in. Like unless he got like legit injured, they're not going to write him off again. So what does he do there?
Man, that's a great question.
Because he's got to be in something, some sort of story, or I don't know. It's kind of baffling.
I don't have the answer to that. And you're right. If Seth loses and you don't know where he goes because you'll have Gunther and Damian. And that's why I think Seth is more likely to win, because I think you can see a Seth Gunther. You can see a potential Damian versus Finn. You can, at SummerSlam. I think that's due. I don't think you need to wait 6 more months for that. So you have those 2 matches on the Raw side of things. And realistically, if so, you could easily have him in a few months feud with potentially a guy like Gable, or a guy, even like a Karrion Kross to kind of just keep him relevant, I guess. But yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
Do you think so? Do you think they would run a third time at SummerSlam, Seth versus Finn Balor, if Priest is going against Gunther? I don't know. Again, they'd have to find a story for that.
I don't think so. Yeah. I'm good without seeing that again. Nothing against the two of them, but
I just think it's a little easier for me to stomach Damian Priest losing his title to a guy like Gunther than it would be for Seth Rollins. And you said it already, how he's up and down on the card, but how about winning the world title and then losing it a month later? And I know it's Gunther. It's worthwhile. I don't not believe it at all, but he's just Seth Rollins is a transitional champion. That is interesting. I don't know.
Some of the best have done it before,
for sure.
Look at Edge
had to be 16 time by losing at 15.
Exactly, yeah. It's not my favorite thing, but when you have that, I think, and this is us also saying, Gunther's moment is going to be at SummerSlam. They could prolong it until Bash at Berlin.
It could,
for him, but I don't think you need to do that. I don't want to see Gunther built as a guy who either gets DQ'd or who sneakily loses,
right.
matches. So he's a guy that should be taken care of every single way. It's going to be interesting. I don't know what to do, and I think that's the genius and the beauty behind of a Money in the Bank card like this, with so much fresh faces, so many, avenues to go down as we head into a time where it's typically after SummerSlam a drop off.
Yeah.
But I think it's continuing to pick up steam just because of the history and the depth that they've put through with multiple main storylines in WWE. Hell, Seth could be targeted by the Wyatt Six. Seth turned his back on his brothers, his family. So he's another target that could potentially have to go through them. He turned his back on Roman and Dean, just like Gable turned his back on the Alpha Academy. If it's all about family, there's a lot of options for them to target people.
Yeah, you make some good points there. I would be interested. I am interested to see what the Wyatt Six do at Money in the Bank, if they do something. I'd wager it's probably with Chad Gable, but after that, where do they turn?
Yeah.
So Seth Rollins would be an interesting piece for sure. So let's run through this real quick again. We both think Braun Breaker's gonna win the title.
Yep.
Bloodline go over, and probably Cody takes the pin.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. So that
No, not at all.
No, which is also interesting. I know we'll get there at SummerSlam at some point, but like what Orton and KO, some of these guys and Rollins, like what do they do if they're not in these types of matches? Like if Orton and Owens weren't in the 6-man, they might not be on the card or maybe in the Money in the Bank match, but it leaves what happens at SummerSlam. I guess a bigger card deems them to be on it. So we'll have to see. Money in the Bank for the women, I am going Tiffany Stratton with Chelsea Green as the second choice. What are you picking?
Naomi and Tiffany as a runner-up potential.
Men's Money in the Bank, I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre with Jey Uso as the backup. I do want to say, I would not be shocked if Carmelo Hayes won it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to pick him. I wouldn't be shocked.
I'd be shocked.
Okay. All right, so who do you have?
I have Jay with Drew as the number 2.
Number 2. And also, let's do the main event, assuming it's the main event. So Drew said he was going to cash in, so I guess he knows that their Money in the Bank has to be first, and the world title match is like later on. Otherwise, I don't know why you'd say that.
Yeah.
You imagine? Oh, I guess I'm not cashing in. The match happened before me.
And you always want the element of surprise, like the potential, of that cash in. And if the women's championship matches aren't on the card, it's safe to say that Seth and Damian will main event with, the thought maybe he cashes in. That's always the best part. The element of surprise.
Yeah, especially, what was it? Was it Kane the first one to do it the same night? 2010, that Money in the Bank.
He held it for like 50 minutes and then came down and cashed in on, was it Rey Mysterio, I think?
Yes, it was Rey Mysterio. Yeah. Oh, brother. Okay, Damian Priest, Seth Rollins. I'm going to say Damian Priest retains his title.
I'm going to say Seth.
Seth wins the title.
Yep, I'm going to say Seth wins it.
Okay. No cash in for you?
A failed attempt at the end.
A failed
It's weird
attempt
because
at the
Punk
end.
is not liked by either of these guys. Like
That's
so
true.
I'm gonna say a failed attempt. Not
Okay,
a failed attempt, excuse me. The tease, a failed tease, not a failed attempt. A failed tease. If Drew wins, but yeah.
I'm gonna say a failed attempt because I've been thinking about it. Like Punk and him probably have gone through like, look, Punk saying, I never got my main event at WrestleMania. How funny would it be to just always screw me over? Let's do the same thing. You were so close. You finally got the title. I screwed you out of that. Let me screw you out of something else. Win Money in the Bank. I'll screw you from that too. I think it's
Seinfeld.
I think it's a great business. And I'm going to say Drew McIntyre cashes the Money in the Bank in and loses it, and that's it. We have no men's Money in the Bank for an entire year. But hey, that's fresh. It is exciting for next year, as Bloodline will be only in the 6th inning. So I'm looking forward to Money in the Bank, man. I'm looking forward to a late actual 7 p.m. start time. What say you? You don't have to be up at 5 in the morning like Elimination.
I will be on the beaches of Virginia beginning Saturday around 3 o'clock. I have the wife and the in-laws are going to Virginia Sandbridge. I have everything ready to go. I know my plan of attack. We don't have anything to do on Saturday night after our dinner plan, so I will be cushed in with probably a few bourbons down on me. So beware of anybody on X or Twitter. If I'm in a great mood, you're welcome. If I'm in a bad mood, I apologize. But I'm looking forward to it. I love the PLEs that are international. And this is technically international, but knowing that it's a normal-ish start time for us, entitled people on the East Coast, it'll be a nice change of pace. But I'm looking forward to, again, a card that can be very unpredictable and a card that I think gives you all that you need to know about the depth of WWE and all the stories that they could, intertwine every single match.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to this as well. It's nice to have a show that's not in the afternoon and not in the morning. I will be fixated on my couch, but I will definitely be having a beverage or 10 watching this show. In regards to you and your emotions on Twitter/X, the Juice Box does not necessarily share the same views and opinions as one Josh Isenberg. So be wary and do tweet at me or him, at Josh Isenberg 4, at Juicy Steen. I'm looking forward to it. Money in the Bank is the Royal Rumble to SummerSlam, so I cannot wait for this to happen. It sets up everything for the next month, and I'm looking forward to it. So for Josh, I am Juice Springsteen for the Money in the Bank 2024 prediction show right here on The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.